All right. If the polls are accurate, it's going to go right down to the wire, meaning all eyes will be on key marginal seats come Saturday night and all the critical preference flows as we just discussed there. Now, as far as I can read it, there's no landslide win here for Labor, and that'd be one of the first in recent history if they get over the line by just falling over it rather than storming it. So what are the seats we're watching? What are the seats that'll make or break government? Our Sky News Chief Election Analyst Tom Connell is now going to run us through the key battleground regions that'll be crucial on Saturday night.
There's agreement from the two major parties unofficially on where the battlegrounds are, but how they're playing out, well, there's a bit of a split on that. Let's take you around the country on where this election will be decided. Beginning here, one seat of the Northern Territory up for grabs, Lingiari. This takes in the vast majority of the whole territory. You can imagine some pretty remote areas, very difficult to poll. I think we'll only know more about this on election night itself. Heading to Tasmania, 3 seats essentially up for grabs here. Bass, that's the smallest margin, 0.4%. Labor feels as though it's a strong chance in Bass and in Braddon at 3.1% as well. What we know is there'll be a crucial element of preferences, both from, well, UAP, Pauline Hanson's One Nation and Jackie Lambie Network as well. So they'll be crucial. Both parties feel they're pretty close. If one's going to fall, probably Braddon, but no guarantees. Lyons is an interesting one. In the past few weeks, Labor felt as though it might be falling behind. Then there was confidence it was ahead. Now it's seen as in play, and Scott Morrison visiting there again is a sure sign it's up for grabs. So you could see seats go either way overall in Tasmania. South Australia, 1 seat really up for grabs. There'll be an eye on Sturt just in case, but you see the small margin of Boothby, and it's an electorate that's changing a little bit in terms of exactly the demographics there. Labor feels as though it's slightly ahead. No one taking it for granted, but a pretty strong chance it shifts on Saturday. We will see. Over in WA next, and this is where you've got a big split from the parties. Labor feels as though Swan is looking really good for it. Smaller margin, the demographics are friendly, similar to nearby Perth, which they hold already. Pearce, again, both these seats, Swan and Pearce, members are stepping down. Labor feels it's pretty strong there in Pearce and might even pick up Hasluck. Ken Wyatt staying there. They do admit he's got a good solid vote, a personal vote, but about 37% of this electorate is new. They haven't voted for Ken Wyatt before because of redistributions. So that's the upside for Labor. And they also think maybe even Curtin could fall to an independent. On the Liberal side, there's talk of maybe losing no seats in WA. That would be a surprise. It'd be a blow to Labor, considering Anthony Albanese actually launched his campaign over there. But they're adamant Swan's looking closer and that Pearce is pretty much an each-way battle. So we'll see some disagreement between the two major parties there. Queensland is a bit of an all or nothing, as in it might be the difference on the night, might be a case of nothing happening. Dixon, Labor tried last time. Nobody thinks that's going to change at this point. Blair is something the government is trying hard on. They feel as though this type of seat, sort of semi-rural, semi-regional seat with a lot of outer suburban areas is better for Scott Morrison. He's not as unpopular there and is beginning to hurt Labor and the types of voters that might be or might not be attracted to Anthony Albanese. So it's a watch. Labor's adamant it's okay. The government thinks it's its best chance in Queensland. Then you get to Brisbane and Ryan. We're talking Brisbane and Ryan there. We're talking big Labor votes, big Greens votes. So a bit of a double pincer movement, if you like, for the coalition. Neither side thinks there's a guarantee these seats fall, and that's the interesting part about this. There could be some action. We could see a couple of seats go in Queensland, but nothing might happen at all. And indeed, that's similar if you look at the rest of Queensland as well. Let's go up to the regional battlegrounds. Look, nothing here is going to change unless Leichhardt does. Leichhardt's a possibility. Cairns and surrounds there, Warren Inch holding that seat. So again, it's seen as a possibility. A little bit hard to say which way it goes with the way that electorate is quite spread out. It's a definite watch at the very least. Then we're getting to our two biggest states. Victoria, first of all, this will be fascinating. Liberal held seats. Casey, I think you're more watching for a swing. You never know. If that goes, the Liberal Party's in a lot of trouble. Chisholm right on a knife edge. Both sides suggesting they're right in the fight there. Labor perhaps slightly ahead, but look at the margin. It's always been a close one in recent elections. Then you get to Higgins. Again, this is one of those inner city sort of seats, but not the Teals contesting. This time it's Labor. I think that contest is tight, but the Liberal Party's ahead. Kooyong, Josh Frydenberg. Well, the quiet word, if you like, is quiet confidence out of the Liberal Party. They feel as though momentum's finally turning their way. But Tim Wilson in Goldstein seen as the biggest danger to the so-called Teal independents. So a huge watch on that. They think if any seat's going to fall, it's that one, and there's a real fear of that happening for the Liberal Party. For Labor, it's a little bit different. Corangamite, number one with a bullet. Both sides agree that's the biggest risk of Labor losing a seat. Liberal Party feels like it's even edged ahead there, a bit of debate from Labor. McEwen, and look at the type of seats we're talking about with both of these. Corangamite around Geelong, but also that sort of peri-urban area. And then McEwen, the northern suburbs and outskirts of Melbourne as well. 5.3% is the margin. You're going to see a bit of an influence of the UAP vote here. Anti-lockdown message. Is there a problem with Daniel Andrews? We'll find out in the seat of McEwen. Dunkley, it's a smaller margin, but both sides feel as though Labor's probably going to hang on and should be okay. And then all roads lead to New South Wales. So as we have a look at New South Wales, the Sydney battlegrounds, is it going to turn teal? Well, increasingly the talk is no. North Sydney, if Labor is in second position behind the Liberal Party, we'll expect Trent Zimmerman to actually hang on. So Labor, perversely for them, help out the Liberal Party. Wentworth, Dave Sharma increasingly confident behind the scenes of holding on to that seat. Banks, expect a swing. Will it be enough? It's 6.3%. So Labor confident of a swing, but not necessarily of winning the seat. Labor's two best chances, Reid and Bennelong. They feel Reid's just a must win because they were significantly ahead earlier in the campaign. Is there tightening? Maybe, but if they don't win that, will they be in a lot of trouble? And Bennelong, a higher margin. Again, the story of this election and many elections, the incumbent John Alexander's stepping down, and that makes it more of a factor. Less movement expected here, I think, compared to some of the other battlegrounds. This is Central and North New South Wales. The Central Coast here, Robertson and Dobell, probably the favourites. So both incumbents hold on. They're very similar seats, so incumbency might help them out there. Shortland, Patterson, Hunter, blue-collar workers, coal workers. Labor knows it's in a contest. They've said all along they're in play, but they've seen the threat coming a bit better. They feel as though they've pre-selected a good seat in the one most at threat. Hunter, again, that's one where we've got an incumbent stepping down, Joel Fitzgibbon. So the final area here, New South Wales Liberal targets. If you're going to see a coalition majority, it's got to pick up seats in New South Wales. There'll be some losses elsewhere, you'd think, and there are the big chances. Gilmore, well, that's easily their best chance of winning a seat. Andrew Constant stepping up there. Parramatta, 2.8%, so a relatively low margin, and a parachuted-in candidate for Labor, Andrew Charlton. That's, again, them losing an incumbent. And then Eden Monero, not hearing that this will change hands. Labor confident there, and the government not all that confident. Macquarie, it's always close. Labor feels as though the demographics remain on their side, but 0.2%. You wouldn't be predicting anything definitive on that. So yes, all roads lead back to New South Wales, given how many different battlegrounds we've got in this state. The side with momentum in this state is a very good chance of forming government.